We're going to bring y'all into our huddle.
Today's Monday, November 4th, 2013, and you are in the Warriors Huddle with me, Bram, and with me, as always, my boy, producer Scott.
Scott here.
Feel a little bit different being in the Warriors Huddle, man?
Felt good.
Feels damn good. You weren't going to drop the trademark good there? Or?
I would, but you cut me off as usual.
I was pretty fired up to say, do you want to do it now or as a moment passed us?
No, I do it when it comes naturally. Not going to force it for you.
I was going to cut you off there, but you were speaking too quickly. Well, the NBA season is in fact underway, man, so you know we got big things to talk about. In our Warriors update, we're going to go through the Warriors' first 3 games of the year, including the ass-smashing win over the filthy Lakers on opening night. And we're going to talk about the huge national attention the Warriors are receiving, principally from ESPN's Bill Simmons, an old friend of ours from the podcast and a guy we've taken a lot of shots at in the past.
Yeah, I mean, Simmons, gosh, what a love-hate relationship with that guy at this point.
It's going to be all love today because he is, in fact, showing some big-time respect to the war, man. And then a return to the look around the league. We're going to decide what the 3 biggest offseason moves have been this year and then give out some predictions on how the season is going to play out. But first, a little bit of housekeeping, fairly short one today. First off, we're still sponsored by Uber. This thing's the best app I think you can get for your phone if you are hammered or not, looking for a ride and don't have the money. All you got to do is bust out your phone, press a button, and they come to you. Beyond the sponsorship, just one other housekeeping issue on the books. Last week we talked about the signing of Bogut, and we gave out the fact that he re-upped for 3 years at $36 million with the possibility of making $42 million if he plays out a bunch of incentives. But what we didn't do is give out the incentives.
Well, it had just happened when we went on the air.
Yeah, we didn't get a chance to actually research it. That's exactly right. Well, those incentives are as follows, man. He gets $6 million in incentives if he does 2 things. 1, if he plays at least 65 games in every single one of the 3 years he's signed for and accomplishes one of the following. Becomes an all-star, he gets named to the all-NBA team, gets named to the all-defensive NBA team, or becomes defensive player of the year at any point over those that 3-year stretch.
So was that an and, as in he has to do both of those, or an or?
It's an and in that he's got to play 65 games and one of those other, that longer list.
Okay, so he's not getting that $6 million, basically.
I think he'll get it.
He's not playing 65 games for 3 straight seasons.
Well, fuck, I was on the other side of that. I think he can play 65 games. I'm not sure if he's going to become an all-star or an all-NBA, all-defensive, or defensive player of the year guy. Those might be a little harder to reach.
Is defensive team on there?
Yeah, all-defensive team as well.
It could be first, second, or third?
This is way more questions than I was expecting here, man. Jesus Christ, this is supposed to be like a 20-second segment.
All right, well, I could, that the only thing I could see him getting would be all defensive team. I don't think first team, but the way he's been blocking shots already in the first couple of games, I think he could definitely make it onto like the second or third.
I'm just glad to hear something positive coming out of you about Bogut. The last couple of weeks, we could have called this the Scott Hates Bogut podcast.
Well, the season started, and he's playing great so far.
So you're on board?
Yeah, I'm on board. I still don't think he's gonna play 65 games even this season.
I think he plays 65 in all 3, earns every dollar, and I'm fired up to watch it. Last piece of housekeeping, you called it last week. Fredo and his boys got cut from the Warriors' big boy team, but they got signed on to the Santa Cruz Warriors. So if you're fired up to check out Seth and his Godfather stylings, all you got to do is drive over 17 and go check him out in Santa Cruz.
And I can guarantee you it'll be a real fun time because they've also drafted a guy named Kiwi Gardner.
You were so fired up for this.
Who Bram and I have seen a couple times play in the SF Pro-Am Summer League. That guy is so out of control. It blows my mind how the Santa Cruz team would ever draft him. He's terrible. Just terrible. He's 5'7" and thinks he's, I don't know, maybe 6'3". The best play that I remember is Matt Barnes was on his team. The game is coming to a close. They're down by 1. Kiwi has the ball, double teamed, Matt Barnes completely wide open in the corner, and Kiwi hoists up the shot and misses it.
I'm not sure what took longer, that story or the game that story came from, but you're absolutely right. We have watched this guy multiple times. He is the definition of a me-first playground player, talks an amazing amount of shit, does like 18,000 moves before he shoots the ball, and then just ends up with a regular contested jump shot. I don't know if I'm going down to Santa Cruz to watch him, but who knows? Maybe he'll end up on the final squad. Let's move into the Warriors update, man. We got real games we're fucking talking about, finally. Past scores, current standings, 3 games on the template. October 30th, 125-94 satisfying win of the Lakers at home. October 31st, the next night, 126-115, just terrible to watch loss to the Clippers in LA. And then a game I went to, November 2nd, 98-87 win over the Kings. That one also at home. We're now 2-1, tied with 7 other teams for third in the West in this early going. And the power rankings are back, man. Mark with a C, Stein.
I thought we agreed that we weren't going to do that this year.
I don't know if we agreed. I think you just told me I shouldn't read them anymore. And with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and tell you that they are currently 8th in Mark with a C, Stein's power rankings.
Has he come out with a guide to how he figures out these power rankings? Because they're so arbitrary and worthless.
He just looks into the future and realizes each team's probable ending and just tells us that through the power rankings. Don't you worry about the amazing amount of predictions that goes on in this. Well, let's jump in. The opening win versus the Lakers. What a phenomenal game. I'm sure you had a chance to watch it. I sat down and was super fired up to not only hear Fitzgerald, but to see St. Jean, which means one thing. It's the first game of the season. I still have no idea how either of those dudes have a job, but it was good to see him back on my TV screen.
It was great to see him back on the TV screen and just amazing to have Warriors basketball back. I was down in Fresno in a hotel room by myself.
Cooking meth?
No, not cooking meth. And I could not have been happier to be in Fresno, given that game was on. I was in a hotel room by myself, just got to fully indulge. No distractions.
I mean, at that stage, you could have been in Fallujah and it wouldn't matter. As long as you have a TV, you're good to go, I would imagine, man. Well, this one didn't disappoint. They started off huge. I mean, they cut off the lights. They had like the big laser show and giant announcements, pseudo fireworks. They've done that every year for the last like 3 or 4. But for the first time, it didn't seem unjustified. It kind of followed up all the huge platitudes we've heard heaped on this team. And when the lights came on and the lasers were turned off, the Warriors were just as hot as the opening. They
they had the fans. They were giving out blue shirts.
Yeah.
Which I didn't think that worked.
What do you mean?
I didn't think it worked. I saw we've had Justin Trapped in Golden State on here before. He pointed this out on Twitter. It looked like the seats were empty. I think that was a really good point. I totally agree that they got to go back to the yellow.
You mean the because of the blue color, when you're looking at it abstractly, you can't tell anybody's actually sitting there?
Yeah.
I think either you and Justin need to go jointly see an optometrist or start focusing on the arms, legs, and other portions of these people's bodies. I had no problem seeing the crowd there, but fair enough.
It was a crappy hotel TV, maybe.
I mean, obviously. And maybe Fresno just might not have good reception. Well, whatever it is, I, in fact, was able to see the fans and was able to see the team. They came out hot, just like I was suggesting. They looked really comfortable together, immediately established that the preseason does not mean shit. All that time we spent wasted in China apparently did not matter. They had chemistry, and they didn't just play well offensively. They put up 125 points, but they played well defensively as well. The starters only put in 3 quarters, but they still limited the opposing starters of the Lakers to 63 points through 3 quarters. I mean, put simply, man, I have waited about 35 years to watch and root for a contender, and finally got to do that on Wednesday night.
Against the Lakers of all teams. Now, the Lakers are on a back-to-back. They're without Kobe. So, no, actually, you can get very fired up about that still.
I definitely am. And honestly, you just touched on something I think the national media hasn't said anything about. I've wasted a lot of our time talking about gambling terms. Let me throw out another one here. Scheduled loss. You'll hear both gamblers and NBA fans alike talk about this term, scheduled loss. It means that when a team is playing a back-to-back and the second of those 2 games is on the road, the NBA has pretty much scheduled them for a loss. That's true even here in the early season. And we've been talking about how the national media is on to the Warriors. There's no bigger sign of the respect these guys are getting than on opening night, the NBA scheduled the Lakers, one of their marquee franchises, to come in on a scheduled loss and take on the Warriors. I think that they are setting the Warriors up for success, and the Warriors capitalized really impressively.
If there could be a type of Edward Snowden for the NBA, a guy who could release some classified documents on how the schedule is set.
I have no idea who Edward Snowden is, incidentally.
You know, he released all those documents related to spying in the NSA.
Oh, nice, yeah. If it doesn't appear on the sports page, I generally speaking don't know about it.
Well, basically, I want a mole from the NBA to release some inside email traffic, just something to give me a sense. Because, like you were saying, I would love to know how planned and kind of decided upon it was that the Lakers were going to be a back-to-back on the road against the Warriors
right
to start the season.
Well, I'm going to assume that Edward Snowden would come in. I said that name right? Wasn't sure there. Snowden, whatever. That your NBA Mo would come in and say that the NBA wanted the Warriors to come out on fire, and they did exactly that. I'm not the only person who was impressed with the Warriors' performance. Here's Mark Jackson following the win.
There's no secret that Klay Thompson is a phenomenal shooter. And I don't think enough credit is given to him that he's a heck of a basketball player. Not only did he shoot the lights out, but he defended. He was the first line of our defense on Steve Blake, trying to make life tough. And overall, our defense was awfully impressive tonight. Obviously, that's a team coming off of a big win last night, but we did the job that we were supposed to do.
Get that kind of effort, overall effort from your team on opening night. What does that say about your team?
Well, first of all, I want to give credit to the people that, organized the introduction, from the big screen to the curtains to I thought it was first class. That's how big-time organizations do it. And I thought our guys did a great job of being ready after the cheers. When the ball went up, they were ready and prepared. I thought it was a thing of beauty from beginning to end.
You don't hear too many coaches give credit to the people who put together the opening sequence, man. That's a little unusual.
That was a classy move by Jackson. Just appreciates it all, man.
You like that? You like that he's handing out kudos to even the people behind the scoreboard?
It must have been some display, because that to catch his attention and to even say, like, my players were able to refocus themselves back upon the game, that must have been quite a thing to be there in person and see.
Sounds like it didn't really translate under the Fresno TV either.
No, the Fresno TV did not really capture what type of opening that must have been.
Well, you apparently thought it was an opening to a completely empty gym filled with blue shirts, so it couldn't have been that impressive.
Yeah, that's why that Jackson quote doesn't make sense to me. I just don't get it.
Well, one thing we can agree on that Jackson said was how impressive Klay Thompson was.
Oh, amazing.
He came out just dominant, put up 16 in the first, had 27 by half, and ended up with 38 points, although he only played 3 quarters, went 15 of 19 and 5 of 7 on threes. Here's Klay on his opening performance.
A lot to live up to, but that's all right. I don't think I'll keep my average up. That's all right, too. But it felt great, honestly. I was hyped for the game. I was so excited. This is what we live for, these opening nights. We got 81 more games, so you can enjoy it for about an hour, but then we got to fight back tomorrow and play a gritty Clippers team. So it felt great, I'm not going to lie, but big game tomorrow, too.
Well, one thing Klay has not worked on in the offseason is how to become excited and vocalize himself to the media. God, he's so boring.
I was just thinking that. He's getting a little bit more comfortable. He dropped kind of a joke in there,
Yeah,
but
use the term gritty.
I mean, this guy he's got the skill set of an NBA All-Star. Maybe not superstar, but the type of guy sometime in the future could be considered at least for the All-Star. But his vocal intonations makes him seem like someone's little brother who's just happy to be standing in there and can't believe that someone actually wants his opinion and is trying to keep himself from sounding excited. Otherwise, everyone will notice that he shouldn't actually be speaking on the mic. We need to get this guy some, a speech coach or
some
something.
Media training. I think to go along with all those stats that you just mentioned, he also can begin to rack up what we should keep track of, which is number of times the Warriors just do terrible celebrations. You see when he blew on his fingers, like, he was so hot.
Yeah.
It's just, we'll talk about the Curry one in the Kings game where he did some type of rattle thing with his hand, but
Klay's was like an afterthought. Like he suddenly realized, like, I should do something, and then blew on his hand kind of awkwardly. He wasn't sure what he wanted to do. That is an absolutely great observation. He also dropped, although we cut the portion of the quote, that he knew he was hot before the game. He said he hit like 95% of his shots during warm-ups and was ready to go. But I thought to myself, haven't you had that situation right before a game where you're hitting shots, you feel like you're on fire, and then it doesn't cross over at all?
Oh, absolutely. I always wanted to not hit in warm-ups.
You get all your misses out of the way, right?
What I wanted most in warm-ups is for my shot to be feeling good but missing.
That's exactly right. When he said it was hitting during the pregame warm-up, I had the exact same thought that you were saying there, that generally speaking doesn't transfer over. But shit, it did for Klay. Last take on Klay. Thank you, Jerry West. Once again, you are the man. And for point of clarification, it was West who selected Klay. In fact, I think that was the first take he did as the assistant GM or whatever the hell position he is. All right, let's move on. Well, I'm sorry. Let me point out one last favorite thing, and I apologize for this. My absolute favorite portion of this game wasn't the Warriors coming out amazingly hot, wasn't the incredible opening that Mark Jackson talked about. It wasn't even Klay Thompson's 38 through 3. It was the look on Mike D'Antoni's face. They caught him sometime in the fourth. They're down by 20, and he had this expression that made it look like someone had just taken a giant shit in his car. He was like angry, confused, and a little bit sad. So my condolences to you, Mike D. It's going to be one hell of a long year.
Well said.
Thanks. All right, let's move off to the Clippers game. Let's try to do this one quickly. As impressive as the Lakers opening was, the Clipper game was equally as depressing. Klay completely disappeared. We just said he put up 38 in the opener. He came out and only took 7 shots in the game against the Clip. It's one thing, man, if you come out after a hot performance and you can't hit a shot, that's going to happen. But you can't just take 7 shots, man. That's crazy.
We can't have this again. I mean, you saw it in that San Antonio series last year. He just went nuts in the opening game and then kind of disappeared the rest of the series.
Yep.
We're going to need consistency from him.
Would you still trade him?
Yeah, but that's becoming harder because he actually had like an amazing preseason and then he's had a great start to this season. So, and also I'm kind of you're not able to see Barnes right now. So it's very easy to fall in love with the person you're seeing as opposed to this guy, you know, who's just sitting on the bench injured.
Well, he did disappear. Curry didn't. He finally showed up. Curry had kind of a quiet night during the opener. Not that he was off. They just didn't need him, so he wasn't appearing in the box score. In this one, he looked like the Curry of old. His jumper was exceptionally impressive, put up 38 points with 9 three-pointers, but he also looked like the Curry of old with 11 turnovers. This team is not going to win when Curry has 11 turnovers.
He just gets so careless with the ball sometimes, and he kind of... It's like he's trying to be, I don't know, fancy or like kind of so nonchalant about like, oh, I can just dribble around and do a one-handed like whip some pass.
That's exactly what it is. It's like lackadaisical. I am so good, I don't even have to try. That's how good I am. And it translated into some just ass-smashing alley-oops. During one sequence, he had 3 turnovers in a row right at half court, and all of them turned into
Tony
alley-oop
Douglas
dunks.
had one of them, but
you're right.
But
I was testing you.
Yeah, well, here's what I don't understand on those Chris Paul fast breaks. If I'm the guard who's back defending that 2-on-1, as soon as I see Chris Paul start to make the movement that he's going to pass and throw that lob, because you know it's coming, I'm bum rushing Chris Paul and jumping as high as I can with my arms outstretched as high as they are in the air, because what I want to do more than anything is to stop that lob, because you saw it in that game. They get so much momentum off of those plays. The crowd was going insane. So you gotta jump at Paul, make him do a bounce pass to the guy. They're gonna score on that play.
There was a sequence where Jermaine O'Neal kind of did that, or at least anticipated the alley-oop, faked like he was going to go after Paul, and then tried to back up to prevent the alley, and Paul dunked it in his fucking eye.
Paul or Griffin?
Paul. I mean, Paul ended up not passing it because
Paul
he knew
dunked
that,
it?
yeah, because he knew that Jermaine O'Neal was trying to guard against the alley. So, I mean, maybe your amazing defensive technical work. I'm not sure. Jermaine O'Neal tried to do it. This just in related news: Chris Paul is very good at basketball. In addition to his alley-oops, he put up 42 points, 6 steals, and 15 assists against the Warriors, and he earned the right for our game-clinching quote. Here's Chris Paul.
Well, Chris, terrific job at both ends of the court. 1 point shy of your career high. Were you aware of that?
Not a clue, man. I'm just happy we got the win.
How much fun is it now that the game is over to think about the matchup you have with Steph Curry?
Man, he can shoot that ball, can't he? Man, I felt like I was as close as you could get to him, but a lot of credit to Steph, man. He plays hard, plays the right way, but that's a good team win for us.
All that stuff he learned going to your camps as a kid.
Whatever. He learned that from Dale, from his dad, you know what I mean? But it's a really good team over there. I'm just happy we got up for this game.
Giving up 115 points, you think, well, maybe not a great defensive effort, but you guys played great defense, don't you think?
Yeah, you know, like I said, that's a good team. They make tough shots. You know, Klay Thompson came off 38 last night. Saw Steph was the one tonight. That's why they called him the Splash Brothers. But it was a total team effort from us and a good win for us going into a back-to-back. I like that costume, too.
Oh, it's not a costume. That's my wardrobe.
Oh, I thought it was a costume.
Thanks a lot. Back to you, Kevin.
A few thoughts on that. One, Chris Paul is the opposite of Klay Thompson. This guy has got the whole give a quote down to a science. I mean, he's almost an entirely different person on the microphone. You watch him on the court, he is a floor general. He looks like an asshole. He looks like the type of person who will get away with a dirty foul and talk shit the entire time. Then when he gets on the mic, it's all compliments, sunshines, and rainbows.
Actually, it was interesting hearing him because I haven't heard him speak much, and I forget that he has a kind of down south accent, and I'm wondering, do you think the way that he speaks is any reason why on those State Farm commercials he doesn't speak and there's a voiceover and he just kind of is acting?
I don't. His voice doesn't bother me. I mean, maybe they're not trying to alienate us people who don't have that actual accent. But what stuck out to me is, I mean, really, if you watch the highlights of the game, he looks like he could not be more of a competitor. He's not giving anybody credit. He's not being nice to anybody. He's not helping anyone off the floor. Then afterwards, he's saying things like, wow, they are great shooters. How about them Splash Brothers? They're so impossible to guard. I mean, he's really got down the science of that. And secondly, you got to like how he shithouses Craig Sager there in the end.
Craig Sager sounded more drunk than I've ever heard him before.
Think he's been drinking a Gary Radnish?
It really, like, that just did not sound like Sager. Because it seemed slurring his words.
How about the big fake laughter from the booth, too? Kevin Harlan or whoever it was. Last thing I want your take on, this was the highlight of an otherwise terrible game for me. About 3 minutes left in the second quarter, Bogut gives DeAndre Jordan a real nasty foul, and they get into the first quote-unquote fight of the year, making our over-under at 1.5 look pretty low. DeAndre pushed Bogut. Bogut went right back and pushed DeAndre right in the throat. And what I enjoyed about it is that DeAndre had every single portion of the hold me back, I actually don't want to fight going for him. Whereas Bogut looked like if they wanted to, he'd be willing to calmly sit and fight every member of the Clippers team, including the bench, one by one if that's what was necessary. It's just so great having this guy on the team.
Yeah, I think he's playing with a little more emotion and something to prove this year. I didn't see that same enforcer mentality from him last year.
Definitely not during the regular season, at least.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he kind of left that to some other guys. But this year, he seems ready to go.
Because during the playoffs, he had that thing with JaVale McGee where he pushed him and then pointed at his face and said, hit me, and JaVale ran away. So, I mean, he has that nasty streak, but you're right. We didn't see it too much during the regular season last year.
And we should also say, this was now the Warriors playing a back-to-back on the road.
Scheduled loss.
Yeah. So don't take this game and make too big a deal out of it.
I'm just glad you didn't point out that it cuts against my whole the NBA wants them to be good because they scheduled them for a loss on an ESPN double.
Yeah, it was nationally televised.
Yeah, exactly right. Let's move over to the Kings game. A lot more fun to talk about and a game that I went to. Surprising amount of Kings fans, man. I mean,
how could that be?
I am telling you, not in number, but in noise. There was a group of people who traveled together, and they were all wearing jerseys. I couldn't tell who. They may have been Chris Webber jerseys, would have been an extra special F you to all of us. Probably 20 of them, and they kept starting the Sacramento cheer. Sacramento. Needless to say, it drove me absolutely crazy. I had a successful execution of the fake high five. I'm very proud to throw out there. Oh, yeah. No, I really surprised two of them, one in the third quarter and one after the game. The game was nowhere close as the score suggests. The War were actually up 27 points at one point, dominated the entire time, and this was a reappearance of Klay doing the whole Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing. He followed up his 7-shot game against the Clippers with a 27-point, 7-rebound game against the Kings, and Steph stayed hot, dropped 22 and 12 assists. So they look real good, man.
What I'm learning, or what I'm seeing in Steph's game this year, is he's learned that people are just so concerned with his shot and he's learned how to use his pump fake and his hesitation really effectively to draw defenders and maybe dump it down to somebody else, or just go by the guy and get maybe not a three but a pull-up jumper, or go to the rack. So it's really good to see him learning how to use what the defense is giving him. And Klay, to a certain extent, too, is starting to learn how to use that pump fake effectively, too.
Steph is starting to get those phantom superstar calls. Not as much as you'd like to see, but he's starting to get some calls that he wasn't getting years past. And I remember a few episodes ago, we were talking about whether or not it's a good thing for these guys to get commercials. Justin was a little bit hesitant to say he liked having them be out there. This is one of the benefits. If you get a guy who gets national recognition so that the referees know who the hell he is immediately, that's when you start getting these calls, man. There is a
like
tangible
that floater,
advantage.
you know that floater on the baseline?
Yes.
I mean, that was questionable. I mean, he kind of just fell down after he touched the guy.
Yeah.
I thought the guy went straight up, and he got the call.
He earned it, not necessarily on this floor, but over the last summer with all the national media attention he's getting. I actually really like to see it. But the real story of the game for me was not the Warriors' offense, was not Curry's phantom calls. It was the defense. They held Sacramento to 34.5% shooting. That's the lowest field goal percentage in the league so far, which isn't that impressive since it's only been a single week. But nonetheless, it was very impressive, and it was led by our boy Bogut. He held Cousins to 8 points, 7 rebounds. Impressive because Cousins averages 27 and 12, and it was just frustrating the shit out of him. I don't think
Cousins got benched.
That's exactly right, and he got frustrated. I mean, there's no big men left in the league. Cousins is used to pushing people around. He got tossed during the first quarter. Not his shot, literally. His fat ass got tossed into the crowd twice by Bogut in the first quarter, and it was like he just set up the nasty type of environment that Cousins could expect, and he never got back up on his feet. I mean,
and how fun is it to watch Cousins implode during a game? There's no one in the NBA better who sulks more or gets more frustrated or who will turn on his team just in a matter of seconds.
Well, especially now that franchise is his, so nobody's talking shit. I mean, last year at least Keith Smart would go up and get in his ear a little bit and ask him to, kind of put it together. Now that they've decided, like, look, this is you. If they need to, they'll fire the coach if they talk shit to him. They just let him sit there and stew in his own ineptitude and anger.
Yeah, I mean, Malone did bench him, so that was something there, but just hilarious to watch his body language.
Last note before we move on and start talking about the Warriors' national media attention. I've mentioned it. We have a new entrance to the seats, and I now have a brand new thing that I like to do every single time. We'll call it a routine. A little bit of a reference point. When I used to go to Giants games, every single time I saw Barry Bonds, I gave him a standing ovation. I don't give a shit what he was doing. I stopped what I was doing, stood up and clapped for him. Now I actually walk by Joe Lacob on my way to my seats. Like I could reach over and touch him if I wanted to. I'm going to touch him right on the stomach. I am going to thank that guy every single game I see him. It started up on Saturday. I plan on keeping it going, and I cannot tell you how much I suggest, not in like a shady way or stalker way, but if you see Lacob at the game, maybe kind of classily offer a little thank you, Mr. Lacob, because he sure as hell has
How are
deserved
you
it.
saying? Are you kind of screaming it at him?
Kind of, no. I just kind of nicely,
like
hey,
under your breath.
No, hey, Mr. Lacob, thank you. That's what I said last time. I mean, I'm 5 feet away from him, so who knows if he heard it, but
So he didn't respond.
no response yet. We'll see. And I told you this off the
You're
air.
0 for 1.
I'm over one. About 5 minutes into the second quarter, there's a break in the action. It's super quiet. I get ready to scream out, thank you, Mr. Lacob. Erica, who I brought the game to, turns to me and says, look, I don't ask you a whole lot. I'm going to ask you not to drunkenly scream, thank you, Lacob. So I didn't get to really go public with it, but maybe next time.
How many games do you think you'll go to this year?
12.
So if you went 0 for 12 on this, would you still be thanking him, or
Fuck yes.
No, I think you'd get a little pissed off.
I don't think that you really know. Also, we have to define what 0 for 12 means. He didn't respond to me, but that doesn't mean that he didn't appreciate or listen to it. If just in the back of his head he felt appreciated, I'm going 1 for 1. In fact, I'm calling it 1 for 1.
Is there anyone else in this world who you could say thank you to 12 times and them say nothing back to you and you would still feel good about yourself or not be pissed at that person?
Barry Bonds, I just told you that.
You said you clapped for him.
So I was thanking him with my applause.
No one responds to applause like from some random person. He doesn't know what you're clapping about. But, I mean, you're actually thanking this guy. The least he could do is just say, you're welcome.
I think I will
acknowledge you.
I mean, he's surrounded by 19,543 fans who are all trying to thank him at this stage. He doesn't have to stop what he's doing and acknowledge me. I mean, we'll see.
I think he's a huge asshole if you go 0 for 12 this year.
I think if you call Mr. Lacob an asshole again, I'm going to fight you. So we'll see. We'll see how this plays out. You could be right. As of right now, my neurotic anger hasn't hit me. Quick update on the best crowd in sports. In consecutive home victories to open the season, the Warriors have trailed for 23 seconds so far. All right, national attention. We have gone through 3 decades where the national media doesn't give a single shit about the Warriors. That has all changed this year, and it's all coming from Bill Simmons and Grantland over there in ESPN.com. It's come in 2 forms. One, Bill Simmons and Zach Lowe, a guy whose work is a little bit statistic heavy for me, came out with an article where they're trying to pick their favorite League Pass team. League Pass is a thing you get which allows you to watch all the games. They wanted to figure out...
The thing I used to get before they raised the prices.
Raised the prices
Insane.
ridiculously. That's exactly right. Well, if we could afford it, you use a League Pass to watch all of them. They were ranking what teams amounted to the number one League Pass team for them, what team they wanted to watch, and it was the Golden State Warriors.
So do you think, are you allowed to have a team you root for and a League Pass team? Because you give me shit all the time for having two teams, but you're allowed to have a League Pass team now?
I say no, I don't have a League Pass team, but I did like that the king of casual observations as far as the NBA is concerned casually observed that the Warriors are by far the funnest team to watch.
Well, I completely agree with him, mainly because this team is so unselfish. And they play great, unselfish basketball, and that is always fun to watch and something you never see in the NBA. Also, I could watch Steph Curry shoot all day long. Even when he misses, I still enjoy watching him shoot because it's so gorgeous. The form is like amazing.
We've talked about this before on this podcast, but when he gets hot, it's different than watching any other person get hot. The degree of difficulty with the shots he's putting up just makes that experience unique. It's not like watching a Kyrie Irving beat people off the dribble. It's not like watching Dwight Howard overpower somebody. This is something that is more impressive than any other skill set, I think, in the league, and it's worth stopping whatever the hell you're doing to actually watch. The other thing Bill Simmons did is they did a breakdown of every team in the NBA. This time it was he and Jalen Rose. When they covered the Warriors, he broke down a scenario whereby the Warriors could actually not only make it to the finals, but beat Miami in the finals for the national or world championship. Here's a clip from that.
I'm going to make the case quickly for Golden State. San Antonio, they might be too old. Clippers, we don't know. They added a whole bunch of new guys. They might be same old Clippers. Oklahoma City, we don't know if Westbrook's healthy or not. Houston, we don't know if Howard or Harden's going to mess. There is like a world in which Golden State could just catch fire.
It is.
And beat all these a little bit more flawed teams than we thought and get to the finals. And now in the finals, you got Iggy against LeBron. You're not going to stop LeBron, but at least he'll make him work. And then you just hope you get hot.
Wow. What he's saying is not, it really is not totally out of the question. I don't think in a million years it's going to happen, but it's not totally out of the question.
I mean, what he's saying is they have a puncher's chance. You know, the same way a 16 seed can beat a 1 seed if they hit all their three-pointers in the NCAA tournament. If the Warriors get blindingly hot, go on an amazing run, and that continues all the way through the finals, can they beat everyone that's in front of them? Sure. You know, especially if all those injuries and the lack of cohesion between the Clippers actually comes together.
And I think for the most part, teams got weaker over the offseason than better, in my opinion.
I think I agree with that. Let's save that for the next take when we're talking about offseason moves. Here's one other thing I wanted to play from Bill Simmons and see if you recognize this take at all.
This year, not as much. The other thing I'm worried about, Clairvoyant Bill doesn't think that new arena is happening on the pier.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he keeps getting weird vibes.
Oh,
They're like coming from over here.
With the long glass that allow you to see over the water?
Pipe dream. Clairvoyant Bill says no way. Clairvoyant Bill says that arena will end up next to the baseball stadium. I don't think it's going to happen.
Recognize that?
I think Clairvoyant Bill listens to the Huddle.
I should call him plagiarizing Bill, you fucking bastard. I mean, like we said, love-hate relationship. I'm not going to flatter myself to think that Bill is sitting back stealing takes from the Warriors Huddle, but
Yeah, please don't.
that was, it's a little bit frustrating to hear somebody else spit out that take since we had it, 3 or 4 months ago.
Yeah, but it's not really that mind-blowingly original.
I wonder, have you heard anybody else say it? 2 things. 1, that the arena's not going to happen. 2, that it's going to end up by the ballpark.
I've heard both, but not together.
You have not heard that, you filthy liar. Who told you that, Kiwi Gardner?
Yeah. Clairvoyant Bill.
Let's look around the league, man. What I want to talk about is the 3 top moves in the offseason. Here's the factors to keep in mind. 1, the immediate impact on the NBA hierarchy. 2, don't include Iguodala to the war, since we've already hit that so hard. Here are my nominations. If you've got other ones, you let me know. First one is the giant trade between the Nets and the Celtics. The Nets get Paul Pierce, Jason Terry, and Kevin Garnett, and Boston gets Gerald Wallace's rotting corpse and an opportunity to start the rebuilding effort. What do you think? Good
That
move?
was, huge for the Nets. And I have no idea what Boston was thinking. I know that Pierce and Garnett, they're old, but they still had some good years left in them. Because, number 1, Paul Pierce. He's had old man game from the second he entered this league. 2, Garnett is a psychopath whose game is also pretty well suited for him to get old with. So they had a bunch of years left. They would have had Rondo coming back. So I think that was a big mistake by Boston and a good move by the Nets.
I think it made sense from Boston. The worst thing you can possibly be, and this is only fair because I'm stealing it from Clairvoyant Bill, is a middling team. You either should be a championship contender or a possibility to get into the lottery. You don't ever want to be in that in-between range. And I think had Boston kept everybody with the aging people they had and Rondo not coming back, you're looking at like a second-round loss probably.
But why not try to get something more than that for 2 Hall of Famers?
They don't want to pay. I think they literally decided that either they're going to go for the championship or they're going to bottom out entirely, and they decided to bottom out.
Yeah, well, I guess long-term, it may not be a terrible thing, especially if they get Wiggins in the draft.
We're focusing on the wrong team, though. Does this make Brooklyn a contender? And I think you can make an argument both ways. On the one side, if they can manage Paul's minutes, manage KG's minutes, and Brook Lopez becomes a legitimate Eastern center, then this team could make a very impressive run towards a finals.
And Darren Williams stays healthy.
Yeah, and he actually plays like the top 2, top 3 point guard he was in Utah, and the guy they thought they were paying so much money to actually go over to Brooklyn. And then Joe Johnson is another star, man. So, they've got pieces there that could be really impressive. The thing that I think is going to keep him back is Jason Kidd. Now, I got huge respect for Jay. Jay Kidd was a great player. He played on my favorite college team. He's here from the Bay Area. He's an Oakland guy. I absolutely love this guy, but he's a rookie coach, and I thought that was a really interesting move because this team is built to win right now. They don't have enough time for Jay Kidd to get up to speed and really learn how to do all these things. And then 2, I can't think of a serious coaching championship candidate who came out with this.
Oh, yeah.
I can't listen to that without nodding my head every single time.
Just a lovely West Coast beat. Man, that is some good stuff. From the best CD of all time, 1994's Basketball's Best Kept Secrets.
Easy for you to say. So what do you think? Are the Nets a championship contender?
Look, Jason Kidd's been a coach for the last 10 years of his career, so I think he's going to be fine. They're definitely a lock for the playoffs. And not a contender for the championship, but I guess if you consider going to the playoffs, then you're a contender. So, yeah.
Do you like seeing stars in new places, or do you like people to finish up their career where they started?
I definitely like people finishing their career where they started.
Yeah,
it always just
seems wrong, right?
It seems completely wrong. It's something, these guys like Jordan, like Bird, Isaiah, Magic, they're finishing. I guess Jordan.
Who's the first person on that list there, buddy?
Well, Jordan, that last part doesn't count, but it was a better world then.
I don't know if I'm willing to say better world, but I do agree with you. Second biggest move, this one we've already covered, so we don't have to spend too much time here, was the Houston Rockets' acquisition of Howard, Omri Caspi, and Hakeem Olajuwon as a special assistant. They also got Marcus Camby, who I think set a record this year. Is the first 95-year-old man to play for a National Basketball Association team. So congratulations, Marcus Camby.
Yeah, that Howard move, obviously huge, but I don't think the system really is a good one for Howard or the rest of the other players. I think you're going to see this team that was, bombs away, 3-pointers last year, kind of a little more free-ranging, run and gun. I think that's all going to be clogged down, and I think Howard overall has a detrimental impact. I still haven't figured out what the right system is for Howard to play in.
I think this could work out. I think the 3-point bombs should continue. In fact, he might help it because he's going to draw double teams down low, which should open up shots like the corner 3. The difference is something you've already touched on. Do they keep that pace up? Howard doesn't necessarily like to run. What he likes to do is run and then stop the ball, set up down low, and get it down there. So there's going to be some kind of transition there where they're going to figure themselves out, which is why I hesitate to think that these guys are going to jump into the NBA's elite this year. I do think the pieces work. I do think that McHale will find a way to have all these guys work together successfully. But just like Miami showed us in the first year, it takes a while for this stuff to gel. So while they will be a phenomenal team, I don't think it's going to be this year. I think it's going to be the next one.
I agree with that. And I don't even think it'll be next year. I mean, they'll get better, but I'm not too scared of this team in the long run.
Also, I think, I'd like to see whether or not Howard's listening to Elijah One. If Elijah One can teach this guy any kind of skill-based moves so that Howard's no longer just relying on his athletic dominance and can actually develop a hook shot or develop a drop step, he could be one of the most dominant players in the NBA. He seems a little bit immature and a little bit...
yeah, it seems like he hasn't listened to anyone.
He always wants to make
before.
stupid jokes and always come off as a good guy, so maybe he won't take that kind of developmental step, but maybe he will. I guess we'll see. The third and last big move is a surprising one. I'm not sure if you'll agree, but it's the Pacers' acquisition of Scola, filthy-haired Scola.
I absolutely don't agree with this being even worth talking about.
It's absolutely worth talking about. We'll all remember that the Pacers made it to Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals against the Heat. They pushed the eventual champions as far as they could possibly push them, and one of the reasons they couldn't get up and over the hump is that when Paul George couldn't score, neither could anybody else on the Pacers. Hibbert's an intimidating inside force, but he couldn't score at all and didn't really develop his offensive game at all. David West is only good from 15 feet and out, another position that the Heat defend well. But Luis Scola gives them something that they did not have last year. Sure, he is a filthy Euro. Sure, he's getting up there in age, but he can still put an amazing array of inside post moves and all those little non-athletic hook shots that he's capable of doing. If he brings that type of scoring into the postseason, I think he could play a really big difference.
I'm not even sure he's getting much playing time.
Well, not yet. They're still just gelling him in.
Oh,
he will.
yeah. Look, that's not the next biggest move that we should be talking about is what the Pistons
Nobody
were up
cares.
to this offseason.
Nobody cares.
Signing Josh Smith, trading for Brandon Jennings. I mean, they are positioned quite well to do some damage in the East. Look out for the bad boys.
Oh, my God. I'm not even going to talk about fucking Detroit. I could not care less about any of those moves, except to say that Josh Smith was ridiculously overpaid. We won't go through the rest of these moves. There's a lot of them. I will say that New Orleans picking up of Drew Holiday and Tyreek makes them a kind of an entertaining league pass team. But since I don't have a league pass team, we won't push that too far.
Almost got caught.
Almost. Give me your predictions, man. Your Eastern Conference Finals are?
Who's going to play each other in the Eastern Conference Finals?
Was that a complicated question?
I've just never done predictions to say who's going to be just playing in the Eastern Conference Finals. Normally it's who's going to win the East, who's going to win the West. Actually, I think that's what you said while we were preparing for this show.
You said a lot of things there, but not answered to my goddamn question. Who the fuck is in the Eastern Conference Finals?
I think you'll see Indiana and Miami again.
I agree. Who's your winner?
Miami.
All right. How about Western Conference?
I think you'll see Oklahoma and probably the Spurs.
Man, you are just either you're stealing from my notes or you're reading my mind. Either way, I'm with you. I agree there too, and I think it's the Thunder who meets Miami in the finals. Who wins Western Conference?
I'm going to go Thunder, just like I did last year.
My God. And then I got Miami in 6, and LeBron gets his three-peat. Do you agree?
I just said Oklahoma wins the championship.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't pick that up. Who do you think wins the championship?
I mean, I had Oklahoma last year. I'm going to pick them again. Westbrook's already back somehow. That came out of nowhere.
We got fucked on the fantasy draft on that.
Destroyed my. And I picked Reggie Jackson, thinking Westbrook was going to be out.
Other random predictions, and let's get the hell out of here. Kevin Love gets traded, Rudy Gay gets traded, and Derrick Rose comes back ridiculously strong and leads the Chicago Bulls to a first-place finish in the regular standings in the East Coast, and then falls apart in the playoffs. Here's an appropriate quote from Jason Kidd when he was first drafted to the Dallas Mavericks. He was quoted as saying, "We're going to go ahead and turn this team around 360 degrees." So that's the type of leadership we can look forward to over in Brooklyn. Please remember that if you're looking for us on Twitter, we are now at Warriors Huddle. Our Gmail account is either NBA Huddle or NBA Huddle at Gmail or Warriors Huddle at Gmail. Our website is letsgowarriors.com. We're still on iTunes. Please rate us. If you get a chance, get out there, give us a 5-star rating. We'd really appreciate it, and subscribe to us as well. And huge fun kicking it, you guys. We love it every week, and hopefully we'll see you next week.
Like a high school tutor, but who the hell said being a kid was easy? But ain't nothing going on but cash and be ballin'. But I guess they all is cause they hear a brother fallin'. Don't sweat it, everything's gonna be alright.
Good.